So, mate, finally a bit of validation after a few years. You finally made one of those top 12s, and when you made the top 12, you'd made the most of it.
Yeah, I know. It was good. It was just that I realised over the whole this year, totally everything due to my bad finishes was totally like my mental where I was at, like in my thinking, like it was all in my head pretty much. I just wasn't in the right place. And this last tournament, I got everything right, and I just felt good, and I was thinking right and made good decisions, and it was a good feeling when it paid off.
Awesome.
Finally.
So, mate, why don't you take us through just specifically first? Let's talk about the final Central Open. And take us through your practice and day by day how the tournament went, and then after that we'll talk more broadly about your year.
Okay. So I had 4 days practice on Ross Barnett. I fished Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I fished daylight till dark. I felt great. I was thinking good. I wasn't going to leave anything out. Everything that I had learned over the last 3 years, I was putting to practice, and I felt really good. Like I had left nothing out, and I had lots of options. No matter what was going to happen, and I was ready to drop everything and just fish with an open mind if worst come to worst, which. That's not what I had been doing over the last few years, or this year. If it wasn't working, I tried to make it work, and that's not how you fish over here. You have to fish with an open mind. I knew it was a river system and partly a lake, so I had to. You have to fish. You have to have a lot of rods on the deck and fish the situation, no matter what happens, because the conditions change by the hour.
Yep.
So basically, I found probably three different techniques, but my number one technique that I felt like I could win the tournament with was the frog.
Yep.
And the frog had burnt me, 3 or 4 times over this year, and so I was worried about that because. I knew how risky it could be. I knew I might only get 5 bites, but if I get those 5 bites, I'll be up there. So all the good water and everything that I had was on the right-hand side of the lake, and that was where I knew I could catch fish. That's where I was confident, and everywhere else was really iffy. I didn't want to fish anywhere else.
Yep.
So after 4 days practice, I'm feeling great. Everything's good. I'm pumped up. I've got a late boat draw, so I've got a long day. And the weather looks pretty similar. I've watched everything, Well, I'm flying up the lake, first morning, first day, and I get to my first spot, and the entire right-hand side of the lake has, 2-foot waves just blowing through, 2-foot chop waves, just blowing from left to right, which it hadn't done all week, and every single spot I knew was just mud and ruin.
Yep.
I dropped off the plane and I just sat there for about 10 seconds, and every single tournament this had happened to me, and I felt I just wanted to go back. I didn't know what. I was so I was just upset that again it wasn't going to happen. What I'd planned wasn't going to happen. And then I just thought to myself, I'm not letting this go down like what's happened all year. So I just cleared my head of everything I knew and thought about the conditions, thought what the fish were going to be doing. And I scraped up almost 10 pounds, which was a decent limit, on 5 different techniques all over the lake. I just ran around like crazy, and I caught 5 fish on 5 different lures, 5 different waves, and I was sitting in 24th, and I was super happy that I made those adjustments and was able to do that, fish with an open mind, and catch them in a tough fishery.
So that's cool. They call that junk fishing over there. So give us an example to us Aussies. Tell us the 5 different lures to give us an example of that.
Okay, so wind was everything, but the wind was too strong on that one side. So I went to some riprap, which is like chunk rock, like man-made rock.
Rock
on
wall.
walls.
Yep.
Yeah, rock walls. And I fished them with a square bill, and where the wind is blowing. And I caught. I think I caught one doing that in the mornings, and I caught fish on those riprap walls, but nothing consistent. But I knew they were there.
Yep.
So I caught one on them, and then I caught another one on a similar rock wall, like swimming a worm. It's almost like swimming a real skinny swim bait. Like
Yep.
it's nothing we really do in Australia, but it's you're just sort of swimming it, but it's real subtle.
Yep.
And I caught a fish doing that, and then I went to the left side, which I hadn't caught many fish, and got out of the wind, and I caught one on a frog. So I got one on a frog.
Yep.
That was my third fish, and then I ran down to the dam wall. But on my way back, I had 1 hour to go, and on a different type of worm, pretty much. It's like the full dam. I caught my two there. So I caught them on 4 different things. So I filled out my limit right at the end on the dam wall.
Wow.
And so that was my and I caught them in the last hour. I had 3 most of the day. There was an hour to go, and I caught my last 2.
And it was a pretty tough tournament. You look at the weights, and it's not a big heavyweight slugfest like some of them can be. So 10 pounds was pretty competitive.
Yeah, so that actually suited me, because I knew it was going to be tough. And it was such a new fishery that people didn't have those like planted brush piles or something where they could catch a huge limit.
Yep.
So it definitely suited my style. So I was sitting in 24th after the first day, and like well within striking distance of making that top 12. There was only I think 11 pounds was in the top 12, and I was just shy of 10 pounds and 24.
That's right. So we were all watching it from back here in Australia, mate. You got a lot of followers back here. So take us into the second day.
Okay, so second day, and this is like every single thing I've learned in 3 years came into play in these last 3 days. So it was great to be able to know that and think about it and remember it and then put it into play. And the next morning I ran straight to the dam wall where I finished out the limit the day before.
Yep.
And I went in it took me about 3 hours, but I caught my limit. And I had about, I think I had maybe 7, 8 pounds. And I knew that wasn't going to get me in the cut. And I knew that I caught all of those swimming that worm on the dam.
Yep.
Every single one. And I knew that had got me a check, which was really important because of how low on money I was just to be able to get home.
Yep.
So I thought, I've got a check, that's great. And it was like 10:30, and I was going along the dam. Well, the conditions, everything slipped off. The wind stopped, the clouds left, and it got real hot and muggy, and the sun came out, and straight away it clicked, and I thought they're going to be on the frog again, and this is my shot. So I've jumped in, left those fish, and I've gone up to my frogging spot in the lily pads, and these lily pads are like 200 metres deep, like from start to the bank at 200 metres, and they can go for 5 kilometres.
Yep. So
and
big lily fields.
Just massive lily pad fields, and there were schools of bass underneath those lilies in like sort of 50 yards, probably 70 metre radius section. And if you were outside of that, you could not get a bite. Like you could fish for 3 hours, and then you'd hit a spot and get 10 bites in a row, like bang, bang, bang. So
yep.
I located these schools underneath the lily pad, and they stayed there, which was really cool. And my number one spot that I had, I got up there. It was blasted out. It was hot. Everything was right for frog fishing. And and I glided in to this spot, and I hardly moved the boat, and I upgraded every single fish I had and filled out nearly a 12-pound limit, all on a frog.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you've not only caught your limit in a tough tournament, you've thrown the whole limit away and got a bigger limit, and all on a frog, which is a technique which can be marginal if you're trying to push it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'd worked out, frog fishing isn't frog fishing. I used to think that if I picked up a frog and threw it and they didn't eat it, then they weren't on a frog, but that's definitely not the case. If they're on a frog in those lily pads when the conditions are right, you have to show them the right colour, the right size, whether they want a popping frog, a buzzing frog, or a really subtle frog. And in this case, they wanted a black spro, which is really subtle, and I just walked it as slow as I could get it. And my co-anglers, they got lots of blow-ups and a few hits, but the bass weren't actually taking the lure, but they were actually eating mine every time, like the frog was just down their throat. So, one of those cases where it worked out exactly what they wanted and the conditions went, and I adjusted to the conditions and it happened. So it was a good feeling. And I knew, I had under that 12, I had about that 12 pound, which was marginal to get me in, but because the conditions were so tough and the weights were down, it put me into that ninth spot in the 12.
Yeah.
It was a sickening weight because I was about 30 anglers in and I was fourth, and so there's like 110 anglers to go, and I had to just sit there and wait. But it was a pretty awesome feeling when I made it.
That's right, mate. There was a lot of people watched the weigh-in over here, and we were all just watching you sneak down the board. But I think you finished that second day in ninth.
Ninth place.
So just give us a quick description of your feeling making your top cut, your first cut for the Bassmaster Opens.
It's probably this year has been one of the toughest years, and I think the 3 weeks before this was probably one of the biggest lows of my entire life. Like, I was sick, and I got sick for like 3 weeks, and I had 3 tournaments. I come in the hundreds in them, and I was just, my body was down, and it was the lowest lows of my whole life. And all of a sudden, a week later, 2 weeks later, I was at the highest high of my entire life. So it was a very cool feeling, nothing like I've ever experienced. It was good. So
obviously it was a pretty good feeling when you're sitting in a top 12 briefing. I assume they have a briefing for the next day with the top 12, and you're sitting there shoulders to shoulder with some of the big names.
There was 4 guys in there, 5 guys that I look up to and that just consistently, catch fish against the best guys in the world, Elite Series and FLW, Justin Lucas. The guys that have won millions of dollars were standing shoulder to shoulder with me, and I was about to go against them the next day. It was Keith Combs had just come off winning $250,000 and his second Toyota Texas Bass Classic. He was there. Like, it was an amazing feeling to be against a group of anglers like that.
And they of course haven't fished against you as much as all of us Australians have, so they didn't even know to be nervous.
What's that? No, they were not. No, they sort of announced. Chris Bowes knew what it had meant to me because he's the tournament director, and he sees me come up there time after time and miss the cut, or miss the cut by 1, or be in 100. So he sort of made it known that I was, I think, the first Australian to make a Bassmaster top 12, and that I was going to be out there. So it was. Yeah, they weren't really worried about me, but which is good. I like being the underdog. Yeah,
stay under the radar, mate. Just stay off the radar and in their pockets. So take us through then day 3. It's obviously a different feel. There's only 12 boats on the water, not 170 boats or whatever there was in that tournament. Take us through the process and what happened through that day.
Yeah. So the next morning, there was like a crowd at the boat ramp watching it launch, and I was just. One of my biggest probably inspirations this year was at the PAA at Tellico, and I was coming. We were leaving at 5 o'clock the next morning on the third day after a bad tournament, we didn't make the third day cut, and we were going one way, and I saw Brandon Palaniuk and a group of the guys that made that top 12, they were heading back to the ramp.
Yep.
And it made me sick, I was like, I never want to be driving this way when there's guys driving the other way to the ramp, and it was great motivation. So it was cool to be driving to the ramp that morning, and the height was good. There was they did interviews and stuff like that in the morning, but my nerves were completely gone. I wasn't going to let nerves or anything get in the way. I was just enjoying every single moment because I knew how hard it was to make that. And pretty much the next morning, all the conditions and everything had changed again, and it was cloudy, overcast, and really windy. And all of those conditions played into the hands of that swimming that worm on the dam wall. And and so I pretty much went straight there, and it was the last the 3 days. It was one of those ones where you couldn't do anything wrong, And by 8:30, I had my 5 fish, and I had a really good one in there, about 4 pounds. And I knew that lake was going to get tougher and tougher, and the guys that didn't adjust weren't going to catch them. So it wasn't like I was out of it. I knew I had a shot to win. I felt like I could win. I wasn't going for a top 5. I was trying to win it. And so I had the day before, I'd met 3 guys from Minnesota that fished, one as a pro and 2 as co-anglers, and they had heard my story, and they followed me through making that 12 cut. And they asked me if they cared if they cancelled their flights and work and everything to come and follow me and Gene Eisman, who I was rooming with.
Yes.
And I said, yeah, that'd be cool. So they were like 30 metres from me, watching me fish most of the day. And every single fish I caught, the 3 of them would go like mental, like I'd just won the Bassmaster Classic. It kept the mood, the atmosphere and the mood. I was getting like shivers the whole time when I'd catch one, and they were just giving me heaps of encouragement. And at about 12 o'clock, they're yelling out what's on the front page of Bassmaster saying, Jocumsen's got 5, Sarp's only got 2.
Yeah.
They're going crazy, and I'm going crazy, and it was the greatest day of my entire life. I can't explain what it was like with them guys and how everything was going down. It was just unreal, and my focus was so on the fish, like with what the technique that I had it so confident that there wasn't a time where I was looking away or anything else was distracting me while I was fishing. I was just watching that line, and the entire time I was thinking where my lure was at, how fast I was winding, what the weather was doing, and I was adjusting. So
yep.
It was good. It was pretty cool.
So obviously, then you did you do much upgrading on that third day? Did you put that limit in the? And of course, we all saw it on the front page of Bassmaster as well. Carl with his kicker fish there with a big smile on his face. So did you keep upgrading during the day, or did you have to do any more adjustments?
So this was pretty key. There was an hour to go, and I went up and checked my frogfish. I was curious, and I had to go and check them. So I went and checked them, but that wind and the cloud cover was what ruined it. So I come back to the dam, and it was sort of partly cloudy. There was clouds coming and going, and the technique was so dialed that every time a cloud covered the sun, I was putting June bug on, which was purple, and as soon as that sun come out, that one was off in a watermelon red, was going on. So like the fish, I was keyed in so good that made such a big difference.
Yep.
If you used the June bug when the sun was out, you couldn't catch them. So I was doing that all the way through the day, and then it was 2 o'clock, and I was due in at 3, and the guys from Minnesota were there watching me, and I had 2 really small fish, like just on 12 inches, just legal, and I hooked up, and I swung about a 2-pounder in, and those guys just went absolutely nuts.
Yep.
And so I threw the little one out, had that one in, and then I got snagged and it got really windy. I got stuck in those rocks. And when I went in, my electric motor prop hit the rock.
Yep.
And like it's an hour to go. The fish were biting. It still said staff had two, and I knew everyone else was doing it tough. So the last hour was everything. And in my head, I was just imagining that I was going to hook like this, like an 8-pounder, a 10-pounder, like just a life-changing fish. That's what I kept thinking in my head. I'm going to do that because I sort of knew I needed that. Well, my electric prop hit the rock and snapped the blade off the electric. So I'm like, the wind's blowing the boat in the rocks. I tell my cane where to jump down. We throw our jackets on, and I reverse out. And the guys that followed me said, "We've got a spare for that one." So I had for my electric. So I had to ring Chris Bowes, the tournament director, tell him what happened. He said it was fine. I could swap props. So they had the spare prop. I've undone that, thrown my prop in the bottom, put the new prop on, and I was fishing within 10 minutes.
Awesome.
Back fishing. And then so I settled down and I fished and fished and fished. And the night before, same thing, those Minnesota guys, they told me that at the Red River, Mike Iaconelli was due in at 3 o'clock and at the Classic, and he moved his boat to a duck blind and at 3 o'clock, and he was flipping it at like 20 seconds past 3 because you're not late until it's 3:01.
Yep.
3 o'clock and one minute.
Yep.
And then he threw his stuff down and ran back in and was in time at just before 3 o'clock and 50 seconds.
Yep.
So it was 2 o'clock and there was 5 minutes to go. Well, there was about 10 minutes to go, and I said, "That's it." And I put my rods down, and I didn't get that big one, and I started running back. And the clock said 2 o'clock and 56, and I could see the check-in. And I knew if I got back there, I'd have 2 minutes. So I've done a left-hand turn. I thought about Iaconelli and everything, and I knew I was going to get beaten because these guys are so good. I just turned left-hand turn, went straight to this rock wall. I threw it into neutral, ran to the front deck, pulled my rod up. I was casting before the boat had even got off pad. And on my second cast, I hooked up another 2-pounder. I swung it in, grabbed it, threw it in the live well, threw the little one out, jacket on, started it, and got back at 3 o'clock. And that fish won me, I think, $4,000 because I think Vic was $6,000 and I won $10,000.
Wow. So there you go. Never give up.
Never, ever give up. I learned so much, mentally and about that and about so much over the tournament. It was just the biggest changer of everything in my life, so it was good.
Fantastic, and it's good to show that it took you you fished tournaments in Australia for 6 or 8 years. And by the way, we've done the yearly stats, and you're still about $20,000 ahead of the next money earner down. So all of that experience plus 3 years of doing it tough on the road in the US, and then all of a sudden it all clicks together. So so mate, give us a quick rundown. You've got another year on your sports visa, and of course you've got such fantastic support in Australia. You're going to have another crack at it next year, aren't you?
Yeah, that's just that's a guarantee.
That's a guarantee. So obviously, there's a lot of people out there that want to help you out. So apart from buying the Carl Jocumsen supported jersey, the Team Jocumsen jersey, and that project went well for you, obviously.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have been able to finish the year off without that. That was the money that got me through the last 2 months. So
fantastic.
Without that, I would.
So we're thinking back here of ways that we can, us Australians can support you to get you over there, because let's face it, we like seeing an Australian smash an American, and when you get back there, obviously you're back in Australia in a couple of weeks, and people should keep an eye out for ways where they can help. Every little bit helps in keeping you there, because as we all know, it's not the world's cheapest sport to participate in.
No. I think it is the world's most expensive sport. I think they've done stats on it. I don't think there's another sport that's more expensive. It's crazy.
Oh, I don't know. Some of the high stakes poker tournaments might get up there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think poker is probably definitely the most expensive, but as far as anything else, it's definitely up there in the top of them. I think we're going to try and start maybe a donation sort of thing, because
There you go. Oh, well, when you get back, we can. It's called crowdfunding, and I'm sure there's a fair old crowd of Aussies that are keen to help you out. So, mate, that's fantastic news. Everyone over here is super keen on your results. It was the talk of the weekend, and everyone's very keen to see you get up there. So, hey, I saw also that your 2013 boat is for sale. Give us some details about that.
So this is a brand new 21 FX Skeeter that I've used this year, and each year Skeeter, they sponsor me, but I have to sell that boat at the end of the year, and then they build me a new one. So, the best. If anyone knows me, I like the best of the best, and if something's not working, and the amount of fishing I'm doing, there's not a single thing that I would change on my boat. It's the ultimate tournament boat. So if you want an ultimate tournament boat ready to go that you can hop in and don't have to touch, this Skeeter is definitely the one you want to look at.
That's it, and I see on Josh's page there, he's got it advertised for I think $79,000 landed in Australia. So.
Okay, cool. I'll post that on my Facebook then tonight too.
Fantastic. All right, mate. Well, I'll use that information.
You could say on that top 12 when we came in, they shut down. Like it was half an hour drive from there to the boat ramp to the Bass Pro, and every single light and turn through Jackson was shut down with police on every single corner as the 12 of us just like followed each other through all the way to Bass Pro.
Wow, so it turned a 45-minute drive into a 30-minute drive.
Yeah, they didn't want us to stop or anything at all. It was just like every traffic was backed up crazy, and we never stopped once. You just drove straight through, police on every single corner. It was a pretty cool deal. And to weigh in at Bass Pro in front of the crowd and pull the fish out like that it was awesome.
Oh, come on, Carl. When you fish Boon Doomer, mate, you go from the ramp to the weigh-in. There's not one set of traffic lights there, and you're right next to the Boon Doomer kiosk. Your standards are getting too high.
Yeah, you did, I know.
Hey, and it must have been good to be in the boat and not in the crowd, definitely.
What's that? Yeah. I've been in the crowd too many times.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, I'll tell you what. You won't mind if I put this interview. I'll chop this interview up and we'll put it up on the. I'll put it up maybe even on your Facebook page or somewhere where people can, because I'm sure people want to hear that story of the tournament, and you haven't got time to spend half an hour to talk to everyone in Australia telling it to them. So let's chop that up and get this audio up there, and everyone that's out there listening, if you want to help Carl out, keep an eye on his Facebook page and maybe donate some money.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be good, please. That'd be a big help of yours.
And it's not tax deductible, but it definitely makes you feel good seeing the young fella going well over there.
But yeah.